Welcome back, guys. Week 1 of the season is in the books, and we have blown out the Miami Dolphins. A very impressive showing to start the year, but the tests only get tougher as we progress throughout the season. Before we get started, remember to like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications down below, and let's get straight into talking about what happened in that last game. We went on the road to start the year, and we showed the Dolphins why we will be a massive threat yet again as we took the win by a score of 42-6. We expected it to be a much closer back and forth offensive onslaught, but let's take you through the story of this game to show you why it was not that. Miami would start with the ball, and that meant Tua Tagovailoa would start slinging the rock, and he had an okay day as he threw for 212 yards, but he only completed a little over half of his throws, and that is even more amplified when you see he released it 53 times today. And it didn't get much better in the running game as Devon Achane did have solid production, averaging 4.5 a carry, but after we got up big, it wasn't a very realistic option for them to keep pounding the rock. They would be forced to punt their first drive back to us, and that would bring in our franchise quarterback, Kyler Murray. And he, on the other hand, had a phenomenal showing as he threw for just under 350 yards and tossed in 3 scores as well. And it would not take long for him to start going to his greatest weapon on the field, Hollywood Brown. The superstar receiver brought in this huge 38-yard reception to start the day, and he would continue his performance throughout as he would end his day with 5 grabs for 87 yards. That catch would help them move down the field, and we would cap the drive off by giving the ball to our fullback, Alex Arma Jr., our offseason signing, and he would take to the sky to punch in the score and give us the first lead of this game. Miami would get the ball back, and this is when Tua would start to involve his newest receiving threat, rookie tight end Kareem Snell. And in his first game since leaving Auburn, he had a very solid day as he brought 5 balls for just under 40 yards. But the offense would end up stalling quickly as they would meet the reigning defensive rookie of the year, B.J. Ojulari. And he would shut down a design receiver sweep as he sent him down in the backfield, and then on the next play, he would combine with none other than Clelin Ferrell for the sack. And while that would be Ferrell's only sack on the day, he was incredible as he was pressuring on almost every single play and making Tua uncomfortable throughout the entire game. We would get possession back, and that is when one of Murray's few mistakes would come as he overthrew his receiver on the crosser, and it would be Cam Smith, the second-year corner who was getting snaps in relief of the injured Jalen Ramsey, who would get on the end of this to secure the INT. But this is when our rookie would show up as just a few plays later, it would be our own Michael Allison, the number 2 overall pick, who would get home for the first sack of his career, but he would not stop there as on the very next drive, he would also get to Tua and shove him to the dirt for his second sack. And he would make it 3 in his debut as near the end of the first half, he would bring down Tua on 3rd down to force the punt. Now the first sack would lead them to attempt the field goal, which brought out kicker Jason Sanders, and he would nail it. And he would double that on the next drive to give them 6 points, and that would be all they could muster as they would not score another point for the rest of the game. We would then get the ball back, and we would get one of the most explosive plays of the game from Michael Wilson, as he would bring in this ball on the slant, which he would take for 56 yards, which would get them all the way to the 15 to set them up nicely to end the quarter. And we would finish off the drive as we moved into the second, and Murray would toss up a perfect ball in the back corner of the end zone to none other than Hollywood Brown. But maybe not, as they would call this an incomplete pass, and after looking back at it, we would throw the challenge flag, and after some deliberation, they would overturn the call and rule it a touchdown. Then the offenses would settle down a bit as linebackers on both sides started to step up, starting with our own Zaven Collins. He finished the game with double-digit tackles, and he seemed involved with everything on the tackling side. And for Miami, it was Jerome Baker, a guy that they have held a lot of belief in for a while, and he would also finish the day with double-digit tackles, and he would also drop them in the backfield once for a loss as well, and not to mention what should have been an INT that he dropped. But later in the quarter, we would emphasize running the ball with our lead back, Tyson Williams, and he had an incredible first half, which he would get drastically stalled in the second, but he would finish his day with 53 yards on 15 carries. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention this massive reception that he would bring in early in the fourth quarter, which would put them on the doorstep of yet another touchdown. But we would take this second quarter drive all the way down to the goal line, and we would bring in James Conner, the man who had to fight to keep his spot over the preseason, who would take his only carry of the day into the end zone to bring it back to a 2-score game. Now, before we move into the second quarter, we need to mention the game that Tyreek Hill had. He did get his as he had 6 for 75, but we did a phenomenal job keeping him in front of us and not letting him use the speed to break anything big. We would go 3 and out on our first drive after the break, but on the first play that Miami got, it would be our own Buda Baker who flew in to drop Tua for the 4th time today. And he had a simply incredible afternoon as he finished as the leading tackler with 13 and got in the backfield 3 times as well. But he would not be the only safety to step up this quarter, as it was Javon Holland for Miami, the guy who was given the responsibility of leading the secondary with Ramsey out on injury, and he ended up having a solid day as he finished with 8 tackles and played well in coverage as well. But near the end of the third, we would drive ourselves all the way down the field and we would toss in yet another score, this time to KJ Hamler. He earned this starting spot, filling in when guys got injured last year, and some great preseason play, and he proved we made the right decision with this diving grab for points. Now, most of the fourth quarter was just us running the clock and Miami trying to get something for pride, but it would be our own Kaiser White who would make sure they did not find it, as he almost brought in an interception of his own, but he would finish with 7 tackles with just under half being solo ones. We would get the ball and drive down the field early in the fourth and find Michael Wilson in the end zone to give him a touchdown for his efforts. We would then end up trading turnovers on downs, which included the first sack of the young career of the rookie Jonathan Banks, who would finish the day by adding another half sack and finish with an additional TFL as well. Then, as we would back everyone up to keep the completions short, Cedric Wilson Jr. would capitalize as he would bring in 9 balls for just under 50 yards, but it would not matter as their drive would end up stalling. And for the last impact play of the game, we would reward a guy who was dominant for us all day long in Trey McBride. He made big-time dominant plays when we needed him, and we would send him this deep play-action ball where the defense would leave him wide open on the far side, and he would take it all the way to give us the final touchdown of the day, and he would end up finishing the game going near 150 yards through the air. After the game, we would meet up with Hollywood Brown in the locker room, and he said we didn't execute our plan like we wanted to, but getting the win is what matters most, which we were able to do. And we responded saying not everyone is going to be as pretty as we design, but any week we're able to come out on top has to be considered a success. And with that, the entire team would earn 1,000 XP, and along with that, we would earn 5 staff points as well. We then advanced the week and we got to look at some of the games around the league, and we will obviously be focusing on our division, starting with the Seahawks, who traveled down to Vegas to take on the Raiders, who they would lose to by a touchdown margin. This was a tight game throughout as Vegas would get out to the early lead as Josh Jacobs would find the end zone to cap off his 130-plus yard day. But Seattle would respond as Kenneth Walker would punch in one of his own to certify his great rushing day. And that would be followed up by Geno Smith, who threw for a little over 200 yards, with most of his targets going to DK Metcalf. He would rifle one into Jackson Smith and Jigba to take the lead, but then the comeback would start as the Raiders rookie QB Kevin Rogan would temporarily leave with an injury as they were in the red zone, and that would bring in backup QB Aiden O'Connell, who would scramble into the end zone. And then, in the closing moments of the game, Rogan would return and toss in his first touchdown pass of his career to Jacoby Myers to win it. After that, we see the Rams would welcome the Bears into their building, and this game is doubly important to us because, of course, we know Chicago has Isaiah Simmons, who we traded to them on draft day. And this was, of course, the debut of Matthew Stafford's replacement, Curtis Atkins. And he did not have a good start as he would throw for less than 200 yards, and he would end up throwing an interception to the veteran, Bobby Wagner. But they would end up finding points as Cam Akers would punch one in early, and that would be his best attempt at countering the dynamic ability of Dalvin Cook as he would cross the 100-yard mark on the ground. On the other hand, Justin Fields had a great day as he would start by tossing in a score to Darnell Mooney, and then he would scramble one in later. The Bears would add a field goal to end the half as Chase McLaughlin would bang one in to give them a 10-point lead at the break, but LA would answer back as they would have backup running back Dwayne McBride punch in a touchdown of his own, and then Brandon McManus would knock home a field goal late to tie the game up, but Fields would find Mooney for a 39-yard touchdown reception to take the lead back and the win to go with it. And lastly, we have the Monday Night Football matchup where the 49ers welcome the Bills, and they would lose a close one by 3. Buffalo would get off to a hot start as Josh Allen would toss in an early score as he would hit Gabe Davis for the opening touchdown. And then they would follow that up by having Tyler Bass put through a field goal from 40-plus yards to go up by 10. This slow start came as a result of Buffalo bringing the pressure to the rookie tackle Dexter McIntyre, who was replacing the recently retired Trent Williams, and he ended up letting 2 sacks on the day, along with Mitch Morse, the guard alongside him, letting up another. But eventually the Niners would get Christian McCaffrey and the overall run game going as he crossed 85 on the ground, and they used that to open up the passing game as Brock Purdy did not get past that 200-yard mark through the air, but he did toss in 3 scores as he went back-to-back in the second and third quarter to his top receiver, Brandon Ayuk. The Bills would answer back by tossing in a score to the former Patriot Kendrick Bourne, but they came close to disaster as Fred Warner, who is the best defensive player on the field today, would meet Josh Allen as he tried to take off to force the fumble, and that would lead to their rookie receiver Garrison Drayton bringing in the first touchdown of his career to take back the lead. But then, a story we've seen too many times, Allen would drive them all the way down the field, and he hit Stephon Diggs for the touchdown to give them the win late. We then move to the news headlines from around the league for this week, starting with some unfortunate news as Breece Hall suffered an injury in the Jets' first game of the year, and it has been confirmed that he has a partial PCL tear, and with it, he will be missing the first half of the season, and that is a huge blow to this Jets team that is looking to make a run this year. We also had a division blowout as the Panthers flew down to Atlanta to take on the Falcons, and after getting smashed by a score of 28-0, I think that is a sign to come for the year Carolina has in store. And of course, the world is talking about our incredible showing in which we went into Miami and took down the high-powered Dolphins by a score of 42-6. We then had some staff points to spare, so we went into the coaching talent trees, and under the head coach staff modifications tree, we purchased the second tier of hands-on offense, which will allow offensive coordinator talents to cost 20% less. We could then turn our attention to our upcoming Week 2 matchup as we hold our home season opener against the one team that has haunted us ever since Week 3 of last season in the Dallas Cowboys. This is a team with so much talent and so much promise for postseason success, and the conversation started during our press conference when a reporter said with Dak Prescott being able to make plays with both his arm and his legs, it must be tough to devise a game plan to stop him. What's the biggest factor in slowing him down? And we responded saying it all starts with containing him. He's not built like other quarterbacks. As a defense, you can do everything right and then watch as he creates something out of nothing. And with that, our game day goal was set to beat the Cowboys and hold Dak Prescott to under 75 rushing yards. And along with that, our entire defense will have +5 play recognition for this game. So we started by looking over the injury report, and it looks like they will be without middle linebacker Leighton Vander Esch, as he is recovering from a dislocated knee, which will be keeping him out for the next 4 weeks. That means the second-year DeMarvion Overshown out of Texas will be stepping up to take those starting reps in this game. But he won't have to do it all himself, as they have the runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year a season ago in Micah Parsons, a dominant pass rusher off the edge who finished with 18.5 sacks a season ago, and he'll be looking for his first of the season this week. And opposite him is the veteran DeMarcus Lawrence, a multiple-time Pro Bowler who forces opposing QBs to stay in the pocket, and that leaves them at the mercy of Parsons most of the time. And this defense gets no easier when you back up to the secondary, as on one side they have Trayvon Diggs, the brother of Stephon Diggs, and his hands might be as good as his, as it was not that long ago when he led the league in interceptions with 11 in 2021. And on the other side, they have none other than Stephon Gilmore, the Defensive Player of the Year in 2019 with New England, and he may be in the closing years of his star-studded career, but he is still a threat in coverage, and he tends to lock down his assignment every single week. And this offense is elite as well, starting with one of the best guards across the league in Zach Martin, a multiple-time All-Pro, and he is an anchor for this offensive line. And his good work creates the time for wide receiver CeeDee Lamb to get open. He is a dominant threat in whatever he's asked to do from a playmaking standpoint, and after finishing his 3rd straight 1,000-yard receiving season, he would love to continue the trend by stretching the field on us. They also are pretty successful on the ground with the work of Tony Pollard. He has done a phenomenal job taking over as the lead back with the departure of Ezekiel Elliott, and he is also coming off a 2nd straight 1,000-yard rushing season, but he also punched in 14 rushing scores just a season ago. And this entire offense runs because of their franchise signal caller, Dak Prescott. and we already saw him being the focus of our pregame press conference. He is able to do almost anything they could ask of him, incredibly accurate with the football and able to move with his legs as well, and he is coming off one of the best games of his career as he threw 5 touchdowns in Baltimore to pick up the win against the Ravens on the road. Overall as a team, the Cowboys have an elite QB with playmakers in the run game and pass game as well. Their offensive line is nowhere near as great as it used to be as it's gotten a lot younger, besides of course Zach Martin. On defense, they have elite edge rushing and incredible secondary play as well, but a weaker linebacking core might leave some opportunities for us to attack them. Knowing who we were going up against, we could now set our game plan for this upcoming matchup. Starting on the defensive side, we want to defend this short pass. This offense is too good to let them get the easy ones, so we need to lock down the short field and let them test our playmakers deep. And then on offense, we're going to focus on countering the blitz. This pass rush is already incredible, combined with the fact that they blitzed the 8th most in the league in their first game. We cannot allow that to become a trend for them in this game. It was then time for us to set our game day goals for our upcoming battle. Following our earlier Prescott rushing goal, we want to win the turnover battle. We know when you have a battle against 2 of the top teams in this league, the key to victory is winning that turnover battle. Next, we want to get 300 plus offensive yards. We know how impressive their defensive unit is for them, but we cannot undervalue how amazing our offensive unit is to contradict them, and we need to have some confidence in ourselves. After that, we want to allow 20 points or less. A very tough goal as this is a very talented grouping on offense, but after last week where we held Miami to just 6, we have all the momentum to get it done this week. And lastly, we want to get 200 plus rushing yards. The run game was so key to our passing attack working in that last game, and if that continues to work this season, we are going to see a lot more success to come. We then went through practice for the week, and we unfortunately did receive some injury news following its conclusion, as Trey McBride suffered an ACL sprain, and he will be unavailable to suit up this week. Honestly, I think we are more grateful that with where the injury was located, that it was just a sprain, but we will be having the veteran Zach Ertz stepping in to fill that void and seeing if he is still able to bring the fight to a former longtime rival from his time in Philadelphia. But we did have some positive news like the continued development of Rondale Moore. He was relegated to the second string with the emergence of KJ Hamler, but he could still be essential whether he is a trade piece or a bench piece, and this week he improved his catch in traffic and his short, medium, and deep route running. Then we move to the defensive side where we have Zaven Collins. He was phenomenal a season ago, forcing us to pick up that 5th-year option on his contract, and this week he continued to grow in his play rec and tackling. We then drop back to the secondary to our draft day trade acquisition, Tyreek Stevenson. He has so much to prove being a massive part of our team's offseason strategy, and today he improved in his awareness and zone coverage. One of our rookies was the next step up as it was our starting center, Chris Sara. A ton of responsibility falls on the 21-year-old, but he had a great start after 1 week of action, and he further developed his awareness and pass blocking against power moves. And last but certainly not least, we have Tyson Williams, one of the biggest contributors on our offense, and today he improved his awareness and trucking. But with that, we have discussed everything we have needed to for this week. If you guys enjoyed, remember to like, comment, subscribe, turn on those notifications down below, and I will see you all next time as we have our home opener as we take on the Dallas Cowboys.